All right. Transformations. What does transformation mean? Change. What kind of changes do we have in graphs? Okay, we have rotation. How would we rotate? Yeah, we have a shift. What kind of shifts? Horizontal shift, a vertical shift, then we have what else? Which direction? Yep. We have a horizontal shrink, horizontal stretch, vertical shrink, vertical stretch. What else do we have? Reflection. What kind of reflection? Horizontal. And we have a vertical reflection. So here's how a function looks. Any function looks like this. Anything that happens outside the function is a vertical change. Anything that happens inside is horizontal. Whatever happens inside is opposite of what it looks like. If I had a function that said x plus 2 squared, what direction is that thing shifting? It shifts 2 to the left. Why? Because it originally started at the origin. So this one shifted. What does it take to get back to the origin? We need a -2. So it shifts to the left 2 spaces. Whatever happens on the inside is opposite. If it's a plus number, you shift it to the left. If it's a minus, you shift to the right. So horizontal shifts. That's the C, the plus minus C. That's what it does. Vertical shift, that's a plus minus D. If it's outside the function, it is what it is. If it's positive, it's up. If it's negative, it's down. So again, C is your horizontal shift. What does B do? B is the value that takes care of the, since it's horizontal, inside, it's the horizontal shrink and stretch. Horizontal shrink. If B is greater than 1, it'll shrink. If B is between 0 and 1, it'll stretch. If B is a fraction, that means it's a horizontal stretch. It's going to be longer. Vertically, that's the A. If A is between 0 and 1, it shrinks. It gets smaller. If A is greater than 1, it stretches vertically. Horizontal reflection. That's a flip across the y-axis. That's if B is negative. If the coefficient of X is negative, it flips across the y-axis. As you can say, as you said, it's a rotation. Yeah, that's reflection is a rotation. If it's a vertical reflection of reflection, if A is negative, it flips down. These are the blueprints of what's going to happen to your function. What's going to happen to that function? What's it going to look like? What kind of graph is it? Yeah. So the first thing you have to do is identify what function are we dealing with. It's a parabola because it's x squared. Now, is it a horizontal or vertical? Is the x being changed before I square it? No. So this is outside. So that means it's a vertical shift up 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And there's my new origin. Again, if it's outside, it's a vertical. And it is what it is. If it's positive 3, it's up. If it's negative, it's down. How about that one? What's going to happen? What's that one going to look like? It's always safer. Take it step by step. First off, what function are we dealing with? X cubed. What does that graph look like? It's the snake going up. There's no horizontal shift because there's no parentheses around the X. All there is this. So that tells us go down 3 spaces. What's really happening here, we're changing the way the origin is. It used to be here at 0, 0. Now I shift it down 3 spaces. The new origin's right there. So my graph's going to look like that. There's my function. All you're doing is changing where the origin is. Next example. Three. What's going to happen to this one?
It's gonna.
So what's the graph? What's the basic function? What does that one look like? Like that. Now 2. It's happening inside, so is that a horizontal or vertical shift?
Horizontal.
So horizontal shifts. How many spaces? Which direction? 2 to the right. So there's my new origin, and there's my graph. Again, it's opposite. This is -2. What happens here is I have to take this, set it equal to 0, and there's my new origin. That's why it's the opposite. How about this one? What's the basic function? Is a square root. That one looks like this. So what change is happening inside there first? The first change is we change the sign of X. What does that mean? If you change the sign of X, what does that mean? it flips across the y-axis. It's a horizontal reflection. Because it happens inside there, it's horizontal. If I change the sign of X, it's now a horizontal reflection. Which direction and how far does it move? Take this, set it equal to 0. So there's my new origin. There's my graph. It's always the opposite. This is a minus, but there has to be to the right. Again, do it step by step by step. Decompose what the function is telling you. I missed that page, didn't I? Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's think of another one.
This one, so like the regular, like just the equation, and you're switching the X and the C position.
Okay, yeah. So B is whatever is in front of the X. C is whatever's in number is inside the parenthesis. So in this case, this is my C, this is my B. So this function tells me my original function is that. The graph of it is the sideways S. What's the first thing that changes in there? The negative in front of the X. That's the most important part. What does that do to my graph? Flips it, rotates it across the y-axis. -2 minus X. So which direction and how many spaces do I shift? -2 minus X equals 0. Yes, it's negative in front of here, but this is also negative. So I've shifted to the right 2 spaces. In order for this to be 0, X has to be -2. In order to get it back to the origin, I need X to be -2. So there's my new origin. That's that graph. Ooh. Again, do this in pieces. What's the function? What does that look like? It's a V.
Oh,
What happens inside that function? It goes to the left 3 spaces. So there's my new origin. So it looks like this. Again, if you're not sure, take whatever's inside the equation, set it equal to 0, and that tells you where your new origin is. So that takes care of this. Now I got to do the -5. So 1, 2, 3. Now I have to go down 5, 4, 5. So where these two lines intersect, that's my new origin. So my graph is a V there. Over 1 up, over 1 up, over 1, over 1 up. Making more sense? Yes.
Absolutely, you're essentially converting the pipes into parentheses. For the sense of,
For the sense of horizontal shift, yeah, because if it's happening inside, I said, if it happens inside the function is absolute value, so it's the pipes. Anything else would be parentheses because the function is, like if it's squared, it's inside the parentheses to be squared. How about that one? So again, the first one is the square root of x. That looks like that. It's that arc. Is there a horizontal shift? No. Is there a vertical shift? No. Is there a vertical plus or minus? No. There's just a coefficient. What does that one do? It happens outside. So since it's big, it makes it bigger. Is it a vertical or horizontal? It's a vertical. Since it's 2, what happens here is instead of 1, it now becomes 2. Instead of 2, it now becomes 4. So it looks like this. It's much bigger than our original equation looks like this. It's a vertical stretch. Because it's happening outside, I'm pulling it up higher. Because it's happening outside. How about that one? It's a vertical. If it happens outside, it's vertical. Since it's a fraction, it's going to be a shrink, which tells us, okay, so our first one is absolute value, which is a V. What's now going to happen is our vertical values. It's going to push down. So instead of 1, 1 and -1, 1, which is the original, this is the absolute value of x. 1/2 x says I shift it down half. So it's a vertical shrink. I'm stepping on the graph. It happens outside, so I'm making it half as tall. That's one way to look at it. What if it's outside, you're making it whatever that is, that tall. I'm making it half as tall as it used to be. How about that? But make it a 2, make it easier for us. Yes.
horizontal shrink.
It shrinks because it's inside and it's a big number, so it's the opposite. Instead of making it bigger, it's making it smaller. It's gonna shrink it this way. So our graph looks like this. When 1, it's 1. When 4, it's 2. What's happening now when it's 1/2, it's 1. When it's 2, it's 2. So our graph is going to look like this. So it's pushing it this way. It's horizontally pushing it against the wall. How about that one? What's the basic function? The parabola, x squared is a parabola. It's outside, so it's a vertical. Is it a shift or what? It's a reflection. Since it's a negative, I take all my values and make them negative. So if you change the sign of outside, or A, if A is negative, flip across x-axis. If B is negative, flip across y-axis. That's boring. That's boring. Ooh. Okay, here's one. Here is your function. Here are your directions. So here are your instructions. Here's your function. I want you to shift it 2 units to the left, 3 units up, and reflect it across the y-axis. Tell me what the new function is going to look like. Let's look at the first one. If it's 2 units to the left, it's a horizontal shift, right? So where does that occur? Inside or outside? So it happens inside. What happens to it? X plus 2. Because since this is to the left, I have to do it the opposite sign. That's the first shift. Then it's 3 units up. Is that inside or outside the function?
Outside.
So it's x plus 2, and it's up 3, so it's plus 3. But now I'm going to reflect it across the y-axis. What changes there?
Put a negative in front of the absolute.
Yeah, the coefficient of the function changes to be a negative. There's your new equation. Very good. Is it making sense, or is it just good? We have 2 more.
If it's reflecting over the X and Y, it's gonna be with the A.
Well, if it's a if it's across the Y, it's A. If it's across the B, it's X. I mean, this is the Y, this is the X. This is a horizontal, that's vertical. Graph this one. Actually, graph both of these. Which of these 2 are the easiest to do?
The one on the right.
This one.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing we notice about this one is a square root function. The next thing we notice is the X change signs, which means we have to change directions. The third thing we notice, it's 1 minus that. So what kind of a shift is it? Horizontal, how far? Which direction? 1 to the right. 1 minus x equals 0. Move the x over, so 1 equals x. So it's shifted to the right, 1 space. So that's all that's, then it tells us to go up 2 spaces. So we know it's shifted 1 to the right, and now we have to go up 2. So there is our new origin right there. We have a dot there. According to this graph, the y-intercept is at 1. So it's up 1 over 1. Looks like that. There's your final answer.
I had it the same way, but it was still flipped.
Yeah,
that way.
whenever it's negative, you know
I
something's
knew
got to change.
yeah.
This one's going to give you the most trouble. So I have to ask you, what basic function is it? Very good. It's 1 over x. 1 over x looks like this. Now, how does this equation fit into that?
Hmm. That's the 3 is the A.
3 is the a. The function is 1 over. The coefficient of this one is 1, so it's 1 over 1x minus 2. So the c is minus 2, and the d is 1. So there's our horizontal shift. So we have to do an x minus 2. So which direction does it go? Yeah, set this equal to 0, x equals 2, so it goes to the right 2 spaces. So there's my new origin. The graph looks like this. The leading coefficient is a 3. It's outside the function, so it's a vertical change. Is it a shrink or stretch? Because if it's outside, it is what it is. So what I do here is now my values begin to grow a lot faster. So it grows a lot faster. Here, if it's 3, so the original one, if x is 3, it's 1 plus 1 is 2. At 2. But with this one, I had if x is 3, 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 plus, so now at 3, it goes up to 4. So it grows a lot faster. And then the last thing we do is we go to the right 2 spaces, we go up 1, and there's my new origin. There's my graph. Now, this just gives you the blueprint. Now you know you pick a couple of points here, 3, 4, 5, see what happens. Then from here, you can plug in 1, 0, -1, and see what happens. And plot those points, and there you have it.
Yeah. That's what I-
That's only, there's no other way around it. You can't avoid that. So, but all I'm going is showing you exactly where it's shifting it. Because a lot of times the questions will be, here are 4 graphs. Which one is graph matches this? But you still have to know how to do it yourself if you don't have the computer to do it. But yeah, other than I'm sorry, this is not much you can do about that. It is what is going to happen. And that's the part that sucks. That's it for that chapter. So work on your homeworks. Monday is test day. That way you don't have to come to class. Take your test Monday. And I'll see y'all next Wednesday. But I'll be here if you have any questions. All right. Hasta luego. Have a great weekend, everybody. It's supposed to be nice and cool. Yes.
Yeah, just interesting thing.